This podcast is made possible with collaboration and input from the LinkedIn Digital Transformation Group with reference to Google News and Wikipedia.
Digital transformation, 7 ways Agile and DevOps can help. Digital transformation work often requires teams to manage conflicting challenges, a dilemma familiar to software developers. Here's how Agile and DevOps can reduce risk and speed up change. Embracing digital transformation requires teams to manage challenges that often conflict, for example, the demand for rapid change amidst vague constraints and complex interdependencies. It's a familiar dilemma to those in software development. Addressing these challenges with a traditional waterfall approach, in which projects move along a linear and sequential path, incurs far too much risk. Cumbersome processes lead to long release cycles, which slows the flow of customer features and results in loss of market share. Meanwhile, delayed feedback loops often result in building features that fail to align with customer needs. Agile's iterative and incremental approach is designed to address uncertainty in the product development process. DevOps fully embraces Agile, and together they provide the foundational principles and tools to help organizations enable faster feedback loops, shorten production cycles, and ultimately deliver greater value for customers and the business. Digital transformation, how Agile and DevOps reduce risk, improve the speed. By adopting both Agile and DevOps as key components to a successful digital transformation, your organization can both reduce risk and accelerate its transformational journey. Throughout the transformation, the following guidelines can help. 1. Begin with a baseline. A readiness assessment is a critical first step to establishing your organization's current state and creating a roadmap for the next steps. This assessment should evaluate maturity in a few key areas, including cultural readiness, leadership commitment, previous implementations, continual improvement, and IT service management process. These results provide the information to develop the objectives and scope for transformational activities moving forward. 2. Start as small and simple as possible. Apply the principles of Agile to implement change in an iterative and incremental way. Treat the transformation itself like a minimum viable product, MVP, that provides value to your organization, customers, and employees through nimble processes and supporting technologies. Teams must learn through iteration, adding complexity incrementally over time. Otherwise, businesses risk recreating something that operates and produces similar results to existing systems with minimal improvement in outcomes. 3. Evaluate each challenge individually. Throughout the digital transformation journey, organizations almost always discover multiple types of problems and opportunities for growth: simple, complicated, complex, and chaotic. There are principles and practices that align with each type of challenge. The highest performing organizations recognize that they need to address all 4 types and use the best suited principles and practices for each situation. Automation is a good example of this, as it can be effectively applied to both simple and complicated repeatable problems, such as building, deploying, and regression testing software. Automating these activities increases efficiency, reduces errors, and increases employee satisfaction. It also enables teams to focus their creative problem-solving efforts on more complex and chaotic challenges. 4. People closest to the work should define solutions. Many leaders attempt to define the solution to be implemented, which naturally creates resistance and significantly limits effectiveness. A more successful approach is to clearly define the problem and desired outcomes, along with boundaries and clear levels of decision delegation. The goal should be to create a space where those closest to the work are given the freedom to experiment and discover solutions. 5. Lead through culture. Ongoing support and engagement from senior leadership is the #1 indicator of success for any transformation. Leaders within any organization set and sustain the cultural standard through words, actions, and rewards. Throughout the transformation, it's essential to consistently examine which elements of the current culture are impeding growth and identify steps to shift words and actions to support behaviors that will enable agility. Your role as a leader should be to drive and support the critical culture changes required to enable communication, collaboration, compassion, and creativity across the business. 6. Don't set it and forget it. Anticipate that the first iterations of any solution will be imperfect and plan for ongoing improvements accordingly. Even those solutions that are well suited to existing needs or circumstances will need to be adapted over time to deal with new uncertainties and ongoing changes. This need for continuous optimization applies to software products, processes, tools, and transformative efforts. Set goals, desired outcomes, and measurements upfront, along with processes to assess results and adjust tactics for improvement. 7. Avoid falling back into old habits. Organizational inertia and fundamental human nature make it easy to get comfortable with the way things are, for better or worse. Even if your organization commits to change in the long run, if the cultural mindset doesn't embrace the new way of doing things, your transformation efforts will likely fall away. When change is effectively implemented and goals are achieved, celebrate these successes beyond the immediate teams. Track change-related performance metrics over time to ensure they continue to demonstrate value and to reinforce team efforts. Technology is no longer a part of the business, it is the business. Digital transformation brings challenges, but it is necessary for future resilience. Agile and DevOps provide complementary approaches to streamline collaboration, improve feedback loops, and deliver faster, more frequent releases. But Agile and DevOps represent more than just a mechanism for delivery. These iterative and incremental approaches support the larger cultural shift in the way modern organizations must address change. Ultimately, the adoption of both DevOps and Agile will increase your organization's potential to achieve the end-to-end flexibility and responsiveness required to enable business-level agility and digital readiness.
A message from our sponsor, Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me tell you here how it works. It's free, you can register free online. Just go to Anchor.fm and register. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or desktop computer, that's how easy it is. Anchor will also help to distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and many more other platforms. You can also generate income from your podcast, with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place. Now, you can download the Anchor apps from the Apple Store or Google Play Store. Enjoy the podcast, thanks again.
IT leadership: 5 tips on how to manage conflict. Unresolved conflict on a team can cause everything from reduced execution to retention and morale problems. With so much at stake, here's how leaders can help their teams improve. Conflict is an inevitable and normal part of interactions, and teams involve interactive relationships at their core. But like other soft skills, dealing with conflict is rarely considered an essential organizational skill outside of customer support. Consider the costs of unresolved conflict in a team: reduced execution, decreased innovation, increased retention risks, and low team morale, and it just feels bad. How to manage conflict: 5 tips. With so much at stake, how can leaders help their teams improve their approach to conflict? 1. Get comfortable with conflict yourself. In conflict, like most issues, leaders should model the behaviors that are acceptable. If you are reluctant or overbearing when dealing with conflict, your team will react to your style. Pay attention to conflict and to your reactions. For example, compromise is a common reaction, but be sure not to leave important issues unresolved. Does your team avoid bringing the conflict to you? Perhaps you tend to give them answers rather than exploring the underlying causes. Or you might be focusing too hard on collaboration and spending too much time on unimportant issues. Do you have a default reaction? Remember that you can only lead from where you are. 2. Understand the common causes of conflict. Conflict typically arises from constant change, doing more with less, confusion over responsibility, miscommunication, differing methods, and differing goals. All these causes occur frequently in organizations, but it exacerbates them in today's fast-paced, remote work teams. Ask your team, what conflicts do they most frequently encounter? What seems to be the underlying causes? If you can zero in on a common cause of conflict, you'll be in a better position to deal with it. Keep in mind that different methods might not be something you can address if your process allows for it, but differing goals should be resolved quickly. 3. Introduce language for discussing conflict. Team members also need to understand their own default modes for dealing with conflict, along with when that mode is useful when it's not, and what other options are available. An often used tool for understanding preferences and options is the Thomas Kilmann mode instrument, which describes a conflict in terms of assertiveness versus cooperation. It identifies 5 distinct modes: avoiding, accommodating, compromising, competing, and collaborating, each of which is useful for different types of conflicts. The key is to use the appropriate mode for the conflict that you are dealing with. Avoiding, for example, should be used when the needs of both parties are low, not because conflict is too uncomfortable to be dealt with directly. Accommodating is useful when the other party's needs are high and yours are low. Whatever model you use, don't overlook the value of your team having a common language to talk about conflict. 4. Help the team acknowledge that dealing with conflict is in their best interest. Until you and your team members understand this, behaviors will not change. When we are under stress, we tend to revert to the behaviors that feel most natural to us. In many cases, talented team members may have been able to get by or even excel without dealing with conflict. However, as organizations change and grow, these issues don't go away, and eventually, they will need to change their behavior. You may hear team members say they just want to do their work without the distraction of team dynamics. But those dynamics exist whether we ignore them, and part of our work includes interacting effectively with teammates. 5. Maintain accountability. As with any project, a leader must drive mutual accountability for conflict management within the team. After you introduce a conflict management plan, schedule a debrief in 30 or 45 days and ask, "We said we'd handle our conflicts in this way, what actually happened? Where and when did we succeed or fail? What did we learn and how can we do better next time?" Without an accountability structure, dealing with conflict becomes just one more good idea left behind in the battle between important and urgent. High-performing teams list conflict management as a core competency for a reason. It is a fundamental key to their achievement capabilities. As a leader, help your team understand the invaluable impact that dealing with conflict can have on performance. Conflict isn't inherently a bad thing, it's just a difference. That difference can lead to innovative solutions if handled well.
Remote work: 4 ways to spot a toxic culture. In a remote work environment, maintaining strong company culture is more challenging and more important than ever. How do you spot and fix the trouble? Ask these 4 questions to do a quick pulse check. In today's often entirely remote work environment, which lacks physical presence, human touch, and body language, it's a plain fact that our interactions are less rich. Therefore, it takes extra sensibility and commitment for leaders to safeguard the company culture and ensure a positive, productive environment for all. How do you spot and fix toxic culture when everyone is remote? Here are 4 simple questions you can ask yourself to do a quick pulse check. 1. Is someone not collaborating with others? Trust is the fundamental element of a high-performing culture. Especially in a remote workplace, it's difficult to be a lone wolf and not collaborate on projects. If you notice your team is avoiding working with someone, look to see if it's a pattern. Perhaps that individual is phoning it in or making too many mistakes, and the team can't trust their work anymore. You need to address this right away to avoid disappointing the rest of the team. Ask yourself, how much do folks enjoy redoing someone else's work? Or watching the employees screw up and get away with it? Or questioning why they are working so hard while others aren't? Worse, your team members may wonder if they can trust you as a manager if you won't handle the problem. You need to think about what's best for the business and the people on your team. If you don't, morale will suffer. 2. Are you hearing more judgments than facts? When we feel judged, we naturally get defensive. A defensive team cannot contribute to constructive problem solving. For instance, instead of blaming a manager for making a bad hire, consider what may have gone wrong in the hiring process. The difference. The former approach attacks the manager's decision-making, while the latter focuses on identifying specific facts and processes that can be improved. When you hear someone make a statement that may be judgmental, ask the person, what do you know to be true? What are the facts? A good way to tell if someone is stating facts or judgments is to apply the videotape test. Can what they describe be captured by a video camera? For example, he was late for the meeting is a fact and passes the test. In contrast, he's lazy is a judgment and doesn't pass the test. Be mindful when you're hearing judgments and try to dig out the facts. 3. Does someone step up to fill the gaps? Another frequently neglected topic of culture building is transparency. Not only will sharing information decrease friction in communication, but it can also help ensure that the company functions smoothly when something unexpected happens. If a new function or project needs a leader, or if someone's departure creates a gap to be filled, do you feel confident that other employees will step up to fill the gaps, at least temporarily? If you're not sure, consider the larger issue: what's making it difficult for team members to step up and take on more responsibilities? Is it because the person who left was responsible for most of your sales, science, biz dev, or technology? Or is there a lack of training and growth opportunities? The answer may be multifaceted, but it's instrumental to cultivate an environment where knowledge and intellectual properties are shared and transferred within and across the teams, and where people feel equipped to take on additional challenges. 4. How do your new hires feel? When you hire new employees, you have likely screened them on hard skills, growth potential, and cultural fit. The fresh blood also gives you a fresh set of eyes. Someone who hasn't been immersed in the company culture for years will bring new perspectives. Even if the new hires don't directly report to you, set up a few one-on-one meetings in the first few months. This is not only a great way to extend your welcome to the new hires, but it also offers a unique opportunity to encounter an outside perspective on how the company is doing and what challenges the new hire may be facing. Try an org chart exercise, where you both define the various roles and responsibilities of the team and compare your understandings to see if they align. Here are a few questions to get the conversation started. Big picture: what is the team trying to achieve? Action items: how are we going to do it? Deliverable: how do we hold people accountable? Support: how can we help each other? If there are discrepancies in understanding the roles and responsibilities, figure out where they are coming from. Create a safe space for new employees to share with you what's new, unexpected, or even uncomfortable. This is a unique way to determine if it can address any current needs. Asking these questions will help you analyze the status of the company culture, and more importantly, spot areas for improvement. Remember, culture is not what you write in mission or vision statements, but how your team members interact with each other every day.
Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. Please also support us by clicking the support button at our page anchor.fm/Maifors, MAIFORS. That's all for today. Hope you enjoy the podcast. We will see you again in the next episode. Have a great day, take care and stay safe.